Hey guys, we're about to go live for this edition of We As Start Talking Live. We're just waiting for Gareth to sign on, and once he joins us, we'll jump right in. Oh, there's Gareth. All right, let's get him in here.
Here he comes. We're just waiting for Gareth. Knock. There he is. Hey, buddy.
Sup, brother? How's it going?
Good, man. You?
Pretty good. Got a little red wine here.
Yeah. I'm a little white wine, bud.
What's going on?
Well, do you want to hit this? Do you want to jump right in? Do you want to wait a couple of minutes? What are you thinking?
Let's get recording.
All
Let's
right.
do it.
So we're going to count back from 3, and the moment I say the word record, we will press record. So 3, 2, 1, record. Hopefully we
All right, we're rolling.
perfectly. Yeah. So welcome.
Always.
Welcome to this edition of We As Start Talking Live. I'm Carl, and my co-host Gareth. And today we're going to be talking about obstacles, fact or fiction. And it's kind of a little playful title that we came up with, but I want to start, and this is just Jimmy, can you stop moving around? So there's just a lot of background noise rubbing up against your mic, I think.
Done.
What an obstacle is. It is a thing that blocks one's way or prevents or hinders progress. So Gareth, you and I talked a little bit earlier this afternoon, and the first thing that came to my mind is reading that immediately implies blocking your way, that you are in fact on your way somewhere, right?
Yep. Sorry, I'm just cutting out. Yeah, just cutting out a little. Give me 1 sec.
All right. Well, So we're still rolling on the audio podcast, and for those that are going to be listening to this on the audio podcast, this will air on Friday, October the 9th. The Instagram live portion of this video is obviously live, as the name suggests. So obstacles, fact or fiction? I think, it's a thing that blocks one's way or prevents or hinders progress. So that immediately implies that you're on your way somewhere. And the first thing, the elephant in the room, Gareth, I want to talk to you about what we discussed earlier today, is how we tend to view the word obstacle when we're moving towards a goal, or when we feel that we have to exert an effort or change some part of our life or try and accomplish something. And we come up with all these bullshit excuses and we call them obstacles. But what I had said to you earlier today, which I found kind of funny, is we never use the term obstacles if we're falling backwards. We never say, oh shit, I'm really glad that obstacle was there to catch me from hitting rock bottom. We always say obstacles are only something that exist that prevent us from becoming the best version of ourselves. But those very same obstacles, those metaphorical sort of guardrails, they don't exist if we're falling backwards and eroding into the worst version of ourselves. And you had some thoughts on that, and I'd love for you to share them.
Yeah, absolutely. That kind of summarized it really well, and I think we almost have to see them as obstacles in the positive. So we've got this view forward, and we've got the negative side of a perceived obstacle that stops us moving forward, and then we have this perceived, or we should have this kind of perceived obstacle behind us, which is stopping us fall backwards, which I would see as a positive, because that might be your, I think this will both resonate with us, and I'm sure a lot of people listening. It's kind of your discipline, right? Like the obstacle that's stopping you fall back is that discipline, that you stay on track for something, that you keep moving forward, or at least you stay where you are and you don't slip back into those bad habits or those systems that don't allow you to be the best version of yourself. So it kind of helps you navigate through that. That's kind of how I saw it, and and kind of trying to flip that. And there's a few other thoughts on the negative versus the positive obstacle, but it's very much about kind of how we perceive it.
Yeah. I mean, the title of today's show is Fact or Fiction. What are your thoughts? Are obstacles fact or fiction?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way for me to summarize it in the way I see it, and actually Leah sent me a great message, and I see she's on, is, and I would 100% agree. I think it's whatever you perceive it to be, because
Isn't
if
that a
you
bit of a
believe,
isn't that a bit of a cop out?
yeah, I think it. I don't know if I see it as a cop out, but I think it has merit in that if you think there's an obstacle there, you're going to manifest that in the way you act. Like if you convince yourself that you're not worthy of doing something, if you convince yourself you can't take a leap for financial reasons, you can't, whatever it might be, whatever you perceive that, if you believe that that's true, it's going to hold you back. If you just say fuck it, I'm going to do whatever I want to do regardless, and you take a leap of faith, and you'll be brave with something, and you don't see it as an obstacle, or the flip side of it is you do see it as an obstacle, but that obstacle becomes more an advantage. And James Clear talks about this, I think, in his book a little bit about kind of obstacles, as does Ryan Holiday, and he has a book called The Obstacle is the Way, and he talks a lot about the kind of obstacle as an advantage. So by you seeing the obstacle, overcoming the obstacle, is that is that a way to kind of gain the upper hand and gain the advantage by doing that? So there's kind of two sides to it. Could it be perspective, or could it just be the way in which you navigate that obstacle, maybe?
So maybe I should have been more specific when I suggested this topic, because while I agree with you, yes, obstacles are interpretive and they are what you view them to be. And one of the notes that I wrote is obstacles are only as powerful as you allow them to be. I guess what I'm really asking is, how do we, as on a path to becoming the best version of ourselves, how do we identify whether an obstacle is, and I'm just going to use a few rudimentary examples, single parent, 3 jobs, 2 kids, daycare expenses, rent, bills, food, school bus, daycare. An obstacle might be no extra money to pay for a gym membership. That's a legitimate obstacle that not many people would argue exists. An illegitimate obstacle would be, and you and I have heard this through the fitness industry for years, is I don't have the time. This is a guy that works like 9 to 5. He doesn't have the time. He views that as a legitimate obstacle. He feels he doesn't have the time, but does that then therefore make it factual? Whereas you may look at that same scenario and go, that's complete bullshit. That's a fictional obstacle that you are empowering and that you are creating. So maybe the better question is, when we recognize a fictional obstacle, how do we empower people to get away, to overcome it?
Yeah, well, I think the obstacle is, and this might just finish this IG live, but the obstacle is you. It's there black and white. Like, the obstacle is you, and that's maybe
Yes.
where the how you perceive it. If you perceive it to be true, it's true, but that doesn't mean you're not just buying into your own bullshit. So yeah, I mean, that person, that 9 to 5 person that says I don't have time to go to the gym, is that obstacle fact? It is to him or to her or whoever, but we know it's just feeding your own bullshit train. Like, and you're on it 110% going wherever it's going. Like, you need to. You're the problem. You are the obstacle. So I like the thinking. Like, I just think it has to come down to how do we, and from my world, it's all about coaching. Like, that's where you need to be coached through something. If I have a client that says I don't have time, it's bullshit. Like, you have to find time. If the obstacle is time, how do we navigate that? Get up an hour earlier,
Yeah.
work out on your lunch break. Like, it's about finding it, right? So I think it comes down to the coaching, because it's easy to say you're full of shit, find time, but that generally rubs people the wrong way, right? So it's about how do you coach them, and it depends on what side you're coming from. But yeah, I would agree, and if you see it as an obstacle, there are legitimate obstacles that I think are true, but at the same time, maybe it's also the change in thinking, because the first example you had, yes, that's a legitimate obstacle. I don't have time, money to go to the gym. Okay, why are you wanting to go to the gym? Reel off the list of reasons. Great, I can find you another way to do those things without a gym membership, for example. So is it about perspective?
Yeah. And this is, you and I talked off air, and I think we both agreed ultimately this is where we wanted the conversation to lead. And we are in complete agreement that it is you that either is or is not the obstacle. And I used you as an example, and I don't think you'll mind me sharing this, but long ago, before you started We As Difference Makers, you had created all of these obstacles as to why you couldn't become a podcaster, and a profoundly good one at that. There was, you'd give me some bullshit about, oh, it's going to cost extra money, and I don't have the equipment, and I don't have the time, and, I don't have content. But really, the truth of it is, and this is validating what you just said, the truth of it is the deprivation of self-worth caused you to feel that those were the obstacles, but the actuality is you were just scared shitless, right?
Yep,
We
absolutely.
create obstacles. I don't know why I just did that. We create obstacles based on our own interpersonal fears. So what if I say to you, in a weird sort of way, obstacles can be kind of a defense mechanism for a lot of people?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely they are. So yeah, like I said, right? You're in the way. It's your own. You need to be able to move forward and be successful with anything in life. You need to be the best reader of your own bullshit.
Yeah.
Because if you can't, I was just literally having a conversation about this with Nikki like 15 minutes ago. Exactly that. We're having a conversation about
Careful.
about a situation in life, and it was, and I wasn't telling her that she needs to be aware of her own bullshit, but that would have got me punched in the mouth probably.
Yeah, I don't think you would have shown up to tonight's show.
But it's definitely that it was just creating awareness, right? And I was sharing the same thing. It's like the first step to anyone changing anything is awareness. Like if you can't read your own bullshit from a mile away, like you're not gonna get over that hurdle, right? It's so true. And again, I think it just comes back to perspective. It's whatever you perceive. Like
Yeah.
you have to be aware of that, because if you're constantly creating these, and we speak about this a lot too, you create those obstacles and you just become the victim in your life. You become the passenger and the victim, right? It's just because everything's just, oh, I can't do it because of this. And then it's just one obstacle or excuse becomes another, and it just perpetuates itself.
Yeah. And you and I and all of us in the We As family, we talk a lot about surround yourself. And one of the things that you and I have never explored, even on our early morning walks, which I no longer do.
It's getting cold.
Well, and yeah,
That's an obstacle.
there's lots of obstacles. Fuck you. Um, is how even the people in our lives can be obstacles, and they can be by choice. We surround ourselves with individuals that can be obstacles. And I know a lot of parents would certainly be guilty of being an obstacle in their children's growth. um, I know that a certain circle of friends that maybe don't embrace your evolution and your challenging of status quo, they can be an obstacle to growth. And perhaps if it's just getting up an hour earlier or getting a part-time job to pay for a gym membership, those are relatively easy obstacles. But I wonder how many of the listeners can identify, viewers or listeners, sorry, can identify actual human beings that have been obstacles in their life, which I feel would be a much more difficult obstacle to overcome. And if we, by the way, everyone, we get paid $1 every time we use the word obstacle.
I wish we did.
By obstacle.com. They make like highway barriers. None of that's true. So what do you, let's speak to you personally, of course. Have you ever had a person that was an obstacle in your life?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm gonna just kind of put a disclaimer on this because I don't know, because I feel like I should, maybe that's the wrong reason to do it. But anyway, my parents are an obstacle in my life 100%. And don't get me wrong, they're also a lot of the reasons that I'm the person I am, right? So, and I'll give two examples because I feel like it is necessary, probably just for me. But this is all about me, right? So that's fine. Like my mum, for example, is a very controlling and perfectionism, especially around the house and when it comes to kind of things when we were a kid, right? So we weren't really given the time and the space to do things as kids. We weren't we weren't able to kind of, whenever we did try and help out, for example, it would just get done again. Like if I was to clean my bedroom or I was to like clean the bathroom or I was like to help do something around the house, it would just get done straight again afterwards because it wasn't good enough. And it wasn't said to me like that, but it's not what you hear as a kid, it's what you see, right? So every time you make your bed in the morning and then your mum just goes in and makes it again because it's not good enough. That side of it, right? So that I definitely picked up, and that really is an obstacle for me, and it's been an obstacle in my growth and development as a person by picking up those traits and doing that to my kid and doing that in in my job and everything. So that's one side of it. So that's a big obstacle. But on the flip side of that, there's also I don't think it's one or the other. So the person can be an obstacle in some aspects, but that being said, I wouldn't have the emotional care and compassion, and I do have some sometimes, and the ability to show that publicly and be able to bring up a little girl and be able to show her all that love and feel comfortable with it, even public and in private, without my mum, because my mum's very much like that. So I definitely learned that from her too. So although she's been an obstacle on some side things, on other things she's made me who I am as well. So
Yeah, and back to the point that we talked about a few minutes ago is perception. And because I'm sure if, and perhaps not after that rant, but prior to tonight, had you have asked your mother if she felt that she was an obstacle in your growth, her perception would have been no. She was being a caregiver and a nurturer, and so it's all based on perception. So this ironically ties into the last We As Start Talking Live, where we were talking about heroes and villains. It really is everything. Our entire lives is all about perception, really. The lens at which you view shit through is how you view shit. So, one person's obstacle is another person's doting mother.
yeah,
I'm sure,
100%.
and I'm sure there's a lot of people that are going to listen to this around the world, and they're going to think, first of all, A, you made your bed, but B, you had a mother that gave a shit and actually went in and made it better. My mother would dump a bucket of cold water on my bed. That was her contribution to my growth. But that's another story. Love you, Mom.
Yeah,
She doesn't. She
but
doesn't listen
yeah,
to this.
it's so true. I just wanted to go back to some of the comments actually, because some really good stuff on here. Aaliyah was talking much like me with the gym membership, example that we gave, and how we find other ways. Also, another great comment about if you buy what we were saying, right? You buy into the obstacle carries weight. So as soon as you buy in, and again, it's believing your own bullshit, right? That's you're gonna get covered in more shit if you keep piling it on and believing in it. So that's 100%.
There's a visual for everyone.
Yep. Tracy just put another great comment, which comes back to coaching, which is when they're ready, it will happen. It's about mindset,
Yeah.
and that's so true. And that's what I said about coaching, right? Like you have to. It's easy to say you're in your own way, get out of it, but sometimes we need to hear that in a different way. We need to be coached, and we need to be able to be listened to by somebody, and then be able to kind of re-navigate on that path, which is what we do as coaches. So I think that's a great valid point too.
I preferred Tracy's remark where she typed the word obstacle. She just made us another dollar.
And she apparently thought it was funny because she put like 3 laughy faces. She's very funny. Obstacles make excuses for us to be able to stay within our comfort zone and not put in the extra work to grow or take risk. Say that again for the people in the back. How true is that?
Yeah. Yeah. And then
Jeez.
and if you could crack that nut, if there was one thing you could figure out in life, that's it. If you could just figure out, and I'll dumb it down even more, if you could just figure out how to get out of your own fucking way.
Yeah.
Your fears,
Jeez, yes.
your insecurities, your baggage, all of the trepidation that you have about your self-worth and your success and what you're meant for, what you deserve, your perception of yourself was a high value contributor to existence, wouldn't that just be so much easier? But then it would be boring. We'd all just be super athletes or millionaires or, just high functioning life coaches. We'd have nothing
Yeah.
to talk about.
Well, we'd just be pretty boring live and nothing to talk about. Here's another thought I just had. So, and actually I say it's a thought, it makes me sound really intelligent. It's actually something I was reading a couple of days ago, and it was, and I really liked this phrase, the microwave culture. And basically what it was referring to is that we live in a microwave culture, right? We put it in the microwave for 60 seconds and we get what we want, right? It's the Siri culture, where we can find out anything we want from our fucking iPhone in 2 seconds. So we live in this microwave culture, and it got me thinking that, life in general is, and the thing I came up with just now is it's very, your life and everything you do and the obstacles and how you perceive it is very, I guess, existential, in that, we're trying to figure out life and our purpose and everything else. And that takes a lot of depth, and it takes a lot of thinking, and it's a lot of sleepless nights. And it also makes you really evaluate your purpose and get out your comfort zone. So life is very, when it comes to obstacles in life in general, it's very existential and less fucking Siri and iPhones. Like you can't just pluck the fucking meaning of life out the air in 2 seconds, and you can't ask Siri because she doesn't know the answer to that. Well, she probably thinks she does, but it's so much bigger than that. And it just made me, anyway, it just came into my head because I was reading it the other day.
Well, let's stay on this for a second, because one of the things that you and I love doing, and I think to some degree we're fairly decent at it, is not necessarily trying to judge or validate someone's perspective on an obstacle being fact or fiction, but perhaps giving people different language in which to communicate what those obstacles are to themselves, so that you sort of flip the script. And if based on what you just described, life's not supposed to be easy. Obstacles are what make it more difficult, but the difficult moments in your life, that's the texture, that's the meat, that's the good stuff. If you never have to endure, and you and I, Gareth, both read Jocko Willnick's book, Discipline Equals Freedom, and he basically talks about wake up early in the morning and do the hardest thing in your day first. Which, if you're waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, the hardest thing to do is to go and lift some weights. But he talks about this philosophy of creating a calloused, sort of a hardened, calloused approach to life. And if you can achieve the hardest things first thing in your day, the rest of your day is going to be fucking easy. So the obstacles that we face throughout our lives, if we never faced them, we'd all just be marshmallows.
Yeah.
Each obstacle we face, and I just wrote a note here, and this is terminology that you use quite often. We get to have obstacles. It's a privilege to have obstacles, because those obstacles, in fact, harden us and toughen us up and make the stressors of an existential life seem easy. If you can overcome all of the obstacles that life is going to throw in front of you, then life's going to be a fucking piece of cake for you.
Yeah,
complete lie, but you know what I mean, right?
It makes it keeps the trivial things trivial. Because if we haven't got bigger things in our life to worry about and care about and problems to solve, then the trivial stuff's going to become a big fucking deal, and it's not. And when you see that, and I witness that in life, and I'm sure you do, and I'm sure a lot of people listening this will resonate, is we see people going through trivial shit. And yes, it's perspective, but let's be honest, somebody pulling out in front of you at a junction, unless they hit you, it's trivial, right? But people losing their mind about it, and then ranting on social media about it, and then and I'm just like, I just don't have time for that, because whatever, you might think it isn't trivial, but fuck you, I disagree. It's trivial because somebody does that, whatever, they didn't see, whatever. As long as somebody's injured, it's a trivial thing, right?
Yeah.
So but then you're blowing it all out of all proportion. You've got to get out your car and start a fight and drag the person out of their vehicle in the middle of the intersection. Like, really? Like, you need better things to worry about if that's your issue, as far as
Yeah,
I'm concerned.
and this goes back to perspective, and I'm not trying to be all morbid and doom and gloom, but everyone, guys, folks, for fuck's sakes, take a look around the world. Like, there's probably 3 or 4 billion people with real fucking obstacles, like not eating, dying in the streets, gang rape, genocide. List goes on and on. Like, there's people with real fucking obstacles that the luxury that we have is you and I, Gareth, can sit here and talk about obstacles are based on perception. There are people in this world where their obstacles are fucking fact. There
Yeah.
is no alternate perception. It exists. So that goes back to that. We get to have first world Western obstacles. Those are easy.
Yep. We are super privileged. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
And
Um,
I wonder if, and I won't go off on this tangent because we can take this offline, but I wonder if that's why the work ethic of so many incredible new Canadians and landed immigrants, their work ethic, there's no such thing as an obstacle because perhaps they've come from a culture where they don't have the privilege of obstacles, right? So it's this whole new first world Western culture that really they've built up those calluses. Right? They're tough. They're tougher than Western culture. So they can just go full steam.
yep. It's too easy, right? It's too easy for some people. It's just too
Yeah.
easy. So people just coast through life, and yeah, nothing drives me more crazy than hearing that, right? It's, oh well, and when it's new Canadians and new anyone, like any new immigrant that's coming in and making a go of life and taking an opportunity that they've been given, or they've worked for, not necessarily been given, but a chance to come somewhere new and they've pursued this. It drives me crazy to hear oh well, people are coming here and taking the jobs of Canadians, and that's just another fucking topic, which is bullshit, wherever you are in the world. But they're not taking anything from you. What they're bringing is fucking hard work. They're bringing a desire to achieve more and be more and not be status quo.
Yeah.
Like, you have to, if you can't commend that, like, you need to get your fucking head out your ass.
And those
And
same people, and if you're listening to this around the world, you know who you are. Those same people, they view immigration as an obstacle to their own betterment, to their own success, to their own wealth. Well, here's a fucking news flash. They're not the problem. You are. You are your own obstacle. Get off your ass, stop smoking darts and drinking beer, and go get fucking 3 jobs.
yeah,
Pay cash for a house and put 3 kids through med school. Go do some real shit.
yeah, for sure. Um, Something else actually I just made a note of, and I think it's worth commenting, and maybe we'll kind of use this as maybe the parting discussion point. But I wrote down something earlier, and I actually did a podcast, and I can't even remember what the episode's called now. But go back and have a look on We as Difference Makers Start Talking, and you'll see it. But I talk a lot about the kind of like the problem solving kind of mindset, and makes me think that when we look at perspective and obstacles, are we looking at it as that? Is it a puzzle to solve, or is it and I hate to call it a problem because I think that labels it as negative, but is it something that we need to navigate and solve, or are we viewing it as a threat to existence or a threat to status quo, whatever it is? And it just made me think about those two flips, because I was thinking about that episode and kind of navigating the problems, and we spoke about this too, right? Like recently a few months ago, about how when there isn't problems, we have this habit as men, and I'm sure there's women that do it too, but typically we as men do it, make up problems in our life to solve, because it gives us fulfillment and it gives us, but maybe yeah, it gives us purpose, right? And maybe it's we do that because it's a perspective thing. Some people are looking at those problems and they're avoiding them because they see them as a threat, whereas we're kind of almost creating them, or we're manifesting them and perpetuating them, so we have things to do, basically.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
I think if you're a higher functioning individual, that may be true, and that you are creating obstacles by which you are purposefully focused on solving them or overcoming them. I would submit, though, that there's far too many individuals that create those obstacles and then use them as excuses. And maybe, you and I always like to give a little bit of takeaway, a little action item. And you can either keep this private to yourself, you can send us a DM, you can email us at info@weas.ca, DM us on any of our socials, drop a comment in when this podcast airs tomorrow. But is there one obstacle that you are 100% convinced you have not created? I'd love to start some dialogue on perhaps altering perception, or at least contributing to perception. Because if we all buy into this philosophy of surround yourself, maybe 3, 4, 5 people contributing to a different perception of an obstacle you feel to be factual could help you transcend that, becoming fictional, created
Yeah, I
by
love that.
you. So, Jimmy, why don't you sign us off? I feel like I always blather on right to the very end. So,
All right. Well,
take us home.
couple of things to add. We were conscious of trying to keep these around about 30 minutes. I think we got pretty much spot on today, and I think we got some awesome content without dragging it out. Not that we ever do that. So just to wrap up, I just want to remind everyone, please go check out all our other podcasts. You can check out weas.ca, where all of our podcast shows are listed. You'll be able to find the recorded versions on there. You can also find it on all your podcast platforms. So go download a couple of episodes, have a little listen. The statement or the quote I was thinking about earlier was the mission completion mindset. So we attack those problems and obstacles in life as missions, and we focus on completing them. It just came to me, so share that. So yes, check those out. Please follow us on social media because we really appreciate your support. Subscribe to the podcasts and listen, be the best possible version of yourselves you can be.
That's it. That's it for this.
Peace out.
That's it for this episode of We As Start Talking Live. See you, Gareth. Love you, brother. Be well. Bye, everyone.